What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. So today I'm bringing to you a card discussion on Nibiru, the Primal Being, and oh my god, is this card ridiculous. When I first read this card, I was in awe at how powerful this card is, because this card is actually going to change competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! For the foreseeable future, because this effect is insane. We've never seen anything like this before. This is a brand new promo, TCG exclusive, by the way, that we're going to be getting in the 2019 Megatins, and man, I just had to bring you guys a video discussing this card because it is ridiculous. Now, before we get into it, I just want to let you guys know this weekend is the Pro Play Tour Philly event taking place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on August 17th and 18th. $2,000 is up for grabs in the prize pool, only $20 to enter, and I'll be there doing live stream commentary coverage for the event. So links are down in the description if you want to go ahead and attend, and I hope to see you guys there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss this absolutely insane card. So Nibiru, the Primal Being, is a level 11 light rock effect monster with 3,000 attack and I believe 600 defense, with an effect that reads as follows. During the main phase, if your opponent normal or special summoned 5 or more monsters this turn, as a quick effect, you contribute as many face-up monsters on the field as possible, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Then special summon one Primal Being token, which is a rock light level 11 with an attack and defense of question mark, to your opponent's field, and its attack and defense become the combined original attack and defense of the tributed monsters. You can only use this effect of Nibiru, the Primal Being, once per turn. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to no, I'm just messing with you, but I mean, that just sums it up right there. This card is ridiculous, and I think one of the things that amazes me about a card like this is that for as powerful as it is, it has like no other conditions attached to it, because I guess the only real conditions Nibiru has is the fact that it has to be during the main phase, which is pretty much when all summoning takes place anyway, so that's not really that big of a downside, but also the fact that it's only once per turn, which I feel like is fine, especially by modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, but at the same time, if you drop one of these, that's probably just going to end your opponent's turn anyway, and you're not even going to need to play a second one regardless. So let's just talk about how good Nibiru really is. So let's talk about it in the context of some of the strongest decks of our current format. So let's look at a deck like, let's say, Crusadia, Danger, Thunder, Guard Dragon, right? This is one of the most notorious decks of the format in the last few formats, and let's discuss just how easy it is for this deck to summon 5 monsters to the field. Well, with any Crusadia monster, which would be 1, you can link off into Crusadia Magius, which is 2. You can use any extender, like let's say a Danger monster, to summon it to that zone it points to, so that's 3. That triggers Magius to add Draco to hand. You're going to link off both the Magius and the other monster to make something like a Beat Cop or a Lamphrolinkus or something like that, so that's your 4th monster, and then you're going to special summon Draco to the zone that that monster points to, and that's 5. You right there already have 5 monsters against this deck. Nibiru is now live, and literally at any point, you can just slam this card down and just end their entire career, because the strength of this card is the fact that you not only just completely obliterate their board, but now they don't have the resources to continue comboing off. If you remove the resource, in this case being something like the Guard Dragon cards, if you wait till they go into something like their LP, then they're not really going to have a way to combo off. One of the strengths that Nibiru has compared to something like, let's say, Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, or maybe another hand trap, is the fact that it not only kind of stops the effect from going off, but it also removes the monster from the field. The reason why Ash Blossom and Effect Veiler and cards like that are a little bit weak is because, yes, while they stop the effect of something like, let's say, Guard Dragon LP, but they don't remove the arrow and they don't remove the monster, which means your opponent can link summon with other cards to go into something like Pisty or Agripane, use that arrow of LP to still special summon something like, let's say, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, then use that LP to summon out their Hieratic Spheres, and they still get their 2 negations and you wasted your Ash Blossom. Nibiru, that's not going to happen because it removes the monsters from the board and prevents them from getting to that board entirely, which means they're not going to have anything left, and they're going to be at such a low amount of resources because they've already had to commit so much to get to that point. Their plan is completely thwarted. That is the strength that Nibiru has against some of the craziest combo decks of any given format. Let's look at another deck. Take a look at something like, let's say, the Dragon Link decks, and I'm talking about this because the Rocket Structure deck actually comes out a little bit later this week at the time of recording this video, and what's nice is the fact that while the Dragon Link decks are a little bit weakened because we don't have Striker Dragon, which we get as an import from Chaos Impact, however, the deck has seen a minor amount of success, and it's something we might have to worry about going into the future of this format. A very simple example here would be summoning Oviraptor, that's 1 monster. You're going to dump Carbon Carbon End to special summon Flamvel Guard, that's 2. Then you're going to synchro off into Ib, the World Chalice Justicar, so that's 3. You're going to use Ib's effect to get the spell, which then resurrects something, so that's 4 summons. And then you're going to go ahead and link off to make something, which is 5, and then summon something off Ib, so that's 6. So right there, again, already, before they even get to the Guard Dragon combo, they've already used 5 summons, so that way you can just disrupt them and pretty much stop their plans entirely, because these decks that are so centralized around the Guard Dragon combo, it's a very, very weak point of the deck that Nibiru can completely and utterly capitalize on. Let's look at another deck. Take a look at like Pendulum Magician. Pendulum Magician is another strong combo deck that also takes advantage of the Guard Dragon engine. Now, it's a little bit difficult to say like how they're going to get to any particular board, but it typically results in them summoning 2 monsters to get to an Electromite, so that makes 3, and then they're going to have to get a 4th monster on the board somehow to be able to link the Electromite and that other monster to get to their Triple Burst Dragon, which Triple Burst would be the 4th monster, and then they'll use something like Dark Worm or, you know, Destrudo or some other dragon monster to get into Elpie, so that's 5, and actually by extension 6 summons already. So again, it allows you to get to Nibiru before they can even access the Guard Dragon combo, and that's insane, because then once you drop Nibiru, they're really not going to have a lot of plays left that they can do, since a majority of their combo and disruption comes from the Guard Dragon combo itself. Nibiru is going to be very problematic for any combo deck going forward, just solely due to the fact that it removes all the threats from the board, it tributes them, so it's not like destruction protection matters whatsoever, and there's really not a lot that your opponent can really do about it. Even against the fair decks, like say something like Salamangreat, this deck got a pretty big hit on the most recent Forbidden and Limited list, but the fair decks even do a decent amount of summoning in a turn. Like let's say you have a Spinny Gazelle combo. Spinny is your first summon, you're going to link that into Baylink, so that's 2, then you're going to go ahead and summon Gazelle, so that's 3, resurrect the Spinny, that's 4, and then you're going to overlay for Mirage Stalio, and you're already at 5. So at any point now you can drop Nibiru, and that's crazy because now if they have something like Roar or Rage, they're not going to have Link monsters, so those are going to be completely and utterly offline. They're not going to get to Sunlight Wolf, which means they're not going to be able to recur any of their resources like Gazelle or like their Roar that's going to be in their graveyard that they set off the Gazelle. It just cripples these decks so significantly because these decks care so much about their board presence, and specifically their in-archetype board presence, that Nibiru is so powerful at disrupting. Even beyond all the disruption though, Nibiru puts a 3,000 attack body on your own board to do something with when your turn comes around. It's not like a hand trap that you discard to the graveyard, you actually still keep the monster. So whether you want to use that as a link material for any of your other plays, or just use it as a gigantic beat stick if you're trying to Boral Sword combo your opponent, Nibiru is an amazing enabler for that, because it's always going to guarantee you're going to do over 8,000 when you have Boral Sword Dragon on the field. But just like any card, I do want to discuss the cons as well, because no card is without their weaknesses, and Nibiru is no exception to this rule. First is the fact that it's not good against every deck. Obviously the control decks are not really going to care so much about Nibiru because they don't do a ton of summoning. Look at decks like Subterror Guru Control or True Draco. They only summon like what, twice a turn, and they're perfectly okay with playing a slower game. Even when you look at a deck like Sky Striker, technically Sky Striker could theoretically summon 5 times in a turn. That would require you to go into all 4 Sky Striker Ace Link monsters and Array, but that's very unlikely to happen, so you're not really going to want to use Nibiru against that deck. Although one important point of note, that if you drop Nibiru and give them the token, it shuts off all their back row because they will have a monster in the main monster zone, so that's kind of hilarious. But again, I don't think you're going to be able to do that consistently enough that it's going to be worth playing Nibiru versus a deck like Sky Striker. Another deck that can actually kind of play around Nibiru to a decent extent is Orkest, because once they get their 5 summons on the board, they've already got their Orkest combo kind of in loop, which means that you can still drop Nibiru, however, they're still going to be able to access cards like Orchestrated Babel, which means they're going to be able to just interact during your turn. They'll be able to get Dingirsu to the graveyard if they have any extender to be able to link it off, and they're still going to be able to disrupt you to a minor degree. So yes, while it does prevent them from getting into an insane board, like with something like Bomber Dragon with multiple board wipes, it's not going to be like the end-all be-all. So more graveyard-centric decks, it won't be as impactful in the same way as the decks that rely on having the resources on the field. I guess another weakness of Nibiru is the fact that it does tribute off your own monsters, which most of the time you're going to be using this turn 0 when you're going second, your opponent's comboing off. But it's nice because even if you draw this a little bit later on, your opponent manages to like break through your board and starts comboing off and maybe sets up multiple negates. I'll happily tribute off my own monsters to Nibiru theirs, because it realistically is not going to matter in the slightest, because that way I'll actually have a chance to come back, but losing your own monsters and kind of ruining your own game state can obviously not be ideal, because it does set you back quite a bit depending on the type of deck that you're playing. Now, another aspect to consider is when you look at Nibiru compared to a card like Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode, because Sphere Mode's a much better draw going second as your 6th card, because if you draw a Nibiru, it doesn't really do anything because you have to use it when your opponent's comboing off and has summoned a bunch of monsters, whereas with Sphere Mode, you can just tribute off 3 of their monsters and drop it, and you don't have to worry. However, one strength that Nibiru has over Sphere Mode is the fact that they don't need to have 3 monsters. So the thing is, if your opponent does a huge combo but only ends on 2 monsters on the field, well, Sphere Mode's going to be dead whether you open it in your hand or you draw it for turns. So that is another thing to consider. And the thing is, even if you do draw that Nibiru, they might just do a bunch of other summoning when their next turn rolls around anyway if they're going to try and OTK you. So then you might be able to just proactively use the Nibiru anyway to stop them, and it might be okay regardless of not if you stop them on that first turn. And lastly, and I think this is the most important thing to consider when it comes to Nibiru, is that once Nibiru is legal in the game for everyone to play, people are going to find ways to play around this card, because a card like this that is so impactful and is going to shape the format for all sorts of combo decks and control decks going forward, this is something that people are going to have to consider, because no competent player is going to go into a major event thinking, oh, I'm just going to play a combo deck and I'm never going to get stopped by Nibiru. That's just not going to happen. This is a card that shapes the format and makes people think in a different way, because Nibiru can just completely end their entire career. Let's go ahead and circle back to Pendulum Magician, because I mentioned this deck earlier. Pendulum Magician actually has a built-in way to prevent Nibiru from just completely stopping them in the form of Jackal King. So essentially, if a Pendulum player can devise a way to get to Jackal King before they reach their 5 summon threshold and get spell counters on the field to fuel its effect negating properties, then they're not going to be able to lose to Nibiru, because then Jackal King can stop the Nibiru from coming down. Remember, Nibiru is an activated effect. It isn't like a Kaiju or a Sphere Mode that can just immediately just be dropped and just stop whatever your opponent is doing. It is an activated ability. So if you're playing a combo deck that has a way to negate effects in its initial 5 summons, that's going to be a way that you can protect your board from Nibiru, and that's going to be a way the competitive players are going to look to combo decks now to figure out, how can I best protect my board from being hit by Nibiru, especially when they're going into games 2 and 3, which is most likely when Nibiru is going to see most play, because I don't really think this card is main deck worthy unless we get into some crazy combo format. I think this is more of a side deck card that you're going to be seeing a lot of, but you do play more games in your side deck than you do in your main deck, which means you're going to be seeing Nibiru a lot if you are a combo player. But overall, Nibiru is an incredibly powerful card. It's going to see play, and it's something that I'm really excited for, because it's going to help shape the game for the months to come. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Nibiru the Primal Being. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.